The Art Center inspires creativity and contributes to
community well-being
through equitable access to
and engagement with visual arts.
We collaborate to offer exhibitions,
learning opportunities, artist development,
and cultural events centered on
art, artists, and art enthusiasts in the greater Corvallis area.
Welcome to TAC Makes a Podcast. I'm here today with Vicki Wilson, who is an artist currently living in Philomath, Oregon. Vicki holds a BFA from Pacific Northwest College of Art and an MFA from Portland State University, both in sculpture. And she will be showing work from a new series in the Corrine Woodman Gallery this January. The series is entitled Compass. Vicki, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. I would love to dive into your practice and how you approach your work, and then talk a little bit about the upcoming show in the Corrine Woodman. Can you talk a little bit about how you discovered sculpture and how it grounds you in life and in your art practice?
Well, I discovered sculpture really early because I had an opportunity to be apprenticed when I was 16. Rita Walden Gambaro was a bronze sculptor living in my area in Virginia, where I grew up. And she sort of took me under her wing for 3 years. By the time I left her practice, I was in college for sculpture at Virginia Commonwealth University, and there was no turning back.
That's a really unique start. I would think, like, that opportunity so young.
I've always been a big fan of apprenticeship, and I've had apprentices in my own studio, even though I probably don't need apprentices in my studio. I've done it just to do what she taught me to do.
Yeah, skill sharing, I think, in any creative field is such an important part of it. It's how we build community, and that's how we continue legacies. So it's really exciting that you do that and teach what you've learned to others. We'll talk a little. You are a teaching artist. We can talk a little bit more about that and how that's affected your practice, and how you influenced others. From that apprenticeship into college, what brought you to the fine art world? I mean, I feel like maybe there was a transition that happened there conceptually for you when you went to school.
Yeah, the first school I went to, VCU in Richmond, was a really skill-oriented college. I learned, I already knew from Rita, but I learned more about bronze casting and glass casting. And then when I moved to the Pacific Northwest, I went to PNCA to finish my degree. And at PNCA, it was very conceptual. And that's where you might even say the trouble started, because it was like, I had this idea of what a sculptor should be before I went to PNCA. And I probably never would have looked back from that unless I had gone to PNCA. But it was so conceptual there. And the things that were happening were so much less about the skill and craft. But I already had that. I'd already experienced that and fallen in love with that. So I felt like I got the best of both worlds from my schools and was able to go forward as a craftsman and as a conceptual artist.
How long did you work as an artist before starting graduate school? Because you did go on to get your MFA.
No, I didn't. It wasn't a straight shot. I was with Blackfish Gallery in Portland for about 5 years, which was fantastic. And another hat for my head that I got to learn to wear, running galleries, and all those people are wonderful. And then I also worked for theatrical costuming and prop making. Michael Curry Design is very well known in Oregon, I think, for Lion King on Broadway and other things. And that was another just mind-blowingly excellent experience for an artist. So once I had done those two things, and I decided to go back to school because I really wanted to teach, and I wanted to teach on a high level. So I wanted to teach college. Everything that I got to do was this terrific learning experience and just compounded. So I wouldn't change a hair of it.
So yeah, you've explored a lot of different avenues in the art world, and I think like working with a group of artists in a gallery setting, I think I mean, I could easily attest that I think it helps you then understand what it means to be an artist and apply to have a show. You understand how it works better. You have those experiences. How did your experience in costuming affect your current practice?
Wow.
Because I kind of see it in the work that you're showing. Do you have?
I'm glad you see it. I'm glad you see it. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't know it when you just look at me, but I have a real love for bling and drama. That got to come out. I got to use that a lot and learn more about how to make drama from working in costuming. And I got to appreciate the stage a lot more too. And I really do. Dude, I love theater. But where it comes out, and I think it's in me. My grandmother was a ceramicist, and the things that I have of hers, I inherited her ceramic shop. So I got her kiln. That was my first kiln. But the things that I have that she's made are full of bling and drama. Bling.
I love it.
Yeah. I mean, she used to do the gold edged decal plates, and I mean it was very of the time. It was early 70s ceramics, opalescence and lusters and things that just will kill you. But people still use them. I don't use them very often. Rhinestone, oh boy, I love a rhinestone. You wouldn't think it doesn't go with ceramics, but I'm gonna make it.
You can figure out a way to get there. You're not done yet.
Right.
Look at a rhinestone in there somewhere.
Rhinestones don't feature heavily in this show.
I want to talk more about the current series, but before we do that, I mentioned this to you before we started the interview, but in reading your bio and your artist statement, you talk a lot about travel and using your work to ground you in place. You've recently moved to Philomath. You're now part of the local art community, the Corvallis art community. Yay. I know, we're so happy to have you.
I love it.
So, can you, are you able to articulate a little bit about how that works for you? Because I think a lot of artists use their practice to ground them in place or at a point in time. Can you talk a little bit more about
that? This is how we keep ourselves mentally healthy or not.
Yeah.
In my case, it's how I keep myself mentally healthy. As when I go into the studio, I'm mulling over the things. I think we all do, and we process it differently. We mull over the things that are going on for us, and we figure out how to make some sense of them. Mm-hmm. And being a sculptor, I think I picked up early on that sculpture is just organizing material. Sometimes the material isn't tangible. Sometimes it's like the material of your world. Sometimes it's your thoughts, but you're always organizing. Anybody who knows me knows I'm an organizer, a crazy organizer. But that's what it is. So I'm always trying to make some sense of something, whether or not it's by putting pieces of things together or by putting ideas together. And I think, this might be slightly off the topic, but I think it's related. I taught drawing for most of my drawing career. And I always felt like what I was doing in the studio was both sculpture and drawing. And I think that this body of work in particular and where it's going, because I'm sort of going into more of a relief sculpture, I think it's starting to become more of both of those things like it never has before. And I'm really excited about that. What was the question? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just talking about how our work grounds us. Like you
oh, great.
You mentioned that it's a meditative practice for you in your statement,
yes.
And that moving was, kind of a trying experience for you, like throughout your life. You moved a lot, and maybe I'm interested in this because I have similar sentiments. I've moved a lot, and a sense of home is kind of skewed a little bit. Like when people ask, where are you from? I don't have a straight answer.
Yeah, me either. Definitely.
Yeah. So I was just, curious if you had anything more to share about that and how your practice.
Yeah. I mean, home's been really important to me. You know, I moved away from my family when I was 20, and it wasn't very long after that the house I grew up in was demolished and a road went through it. But there's this one little section of fence left that marks where my childhood home was. But it's on the side of a highway, and it's kind of sad to me. It's like a grave marker in a way of everything that was. And I've thought about that idea of you can never go home again for a really long time. It's been part of my work for a really long time. The idea of never being able to go home, but also building your home inside, inside your own mind, inside your own self, and taking it with you. But what happened that made me start moving in 2017, I think, was the election. I mean, it was happening before that, but I actually was flying out for a visit when Hillary lost. And I was flying to Virginia. So I was flying into DC. And I was honestly kind of scared. It was just so much turmoil. But I thought to myself, I've been living in Portland so long, I don't know the rest of the country. I obviously don't know where I live. So I decided I wanted to go live in the larger country, meet different people. A lot of what I'm processing in my work is feeling like other people feel. So I like the idea of sort of embracing other people when I make my work and saying, I feel that way too. I'm with you. Yeah. And I was feeling like I didn't know people. So I wanted to go know different people.
Yeah.
And so I stayed in DC and I stayed in rural Virginia. There was a Confederate and a slave cemetery on the property where I was staying in rural Virginia. And DC had to be the hardest city I've ever lived in, definitely. And I was born just outside of DC, so it was really like going home in a way too. I remembered my father a lot when I went to DC because he grew up there. I don't know. I'm seriously not giving you great straight answers.
No. Everything you're saying, I'm relating to so much. This isn't about me, but like I was also on a plane on election night. I was flying from Boston to Paris to go to Perry Photo, and I was really excited to do this. But we took off. The election night had started, and then we landed, and we all, opened up our phones, and we were like, "What?" Like,
what?
And we were in a foreign country 4 or 5 days, and so I processed it in a very weird way because I was away from it and then had to return and then kind of catch up to all these emotions that were around us. And yeah, it was a surreal experience. And I spent most of my childhood in Appalachia. And so I know what you're talking about how the importance of relating to people, even when you disagree with them, and finding yourself sometimes in places that you didn't think you'd ever find yourself. So yeah, I think it's very worthwhile thing to unpack. And I'm glad that we can experience work that's coming out after that experience. That's really wonderful. And the title of the new series is called Compass. So I'm assuming it's related to finding your way. Do you want to talk a little bit about that series and the show that will be in the Corrine Woodman in a few weeks?
Yeah, I think it started when we moved to the coast, and I've always loved the water. And the coast is absolute magic. It's not exactly, it's magic to visit. I'm not going to say it's not perfect to live at, because I also like to garden, and that's hard there, really hard. But being at the ocean and meeting the seals, oh gosh. I love seals. I love them so much. Just like being part of that environment, I did feel kind of at home, with that place. But it wasn't to live. It's a place where I felt at home to be sometimes.
Yeah.
But that doesn't always mean you can live there all the time. So, in we go again, back to the valley. Then there's the mountains and the moss hanging out of the trees and the light, and sitting still listening for a critter It's like being part of that environment is also like home. And
We need it all,
the desert. I love the desert too. I mean, but and then the way each one of them makes my skin feel is different too. But then there's these other parts too. And I think, well, I do think below the ground and above too. And those are not traditionally part of a compass by any means, but I mean, not compass that we think of, but, certainly many cultures consider below and above and below definite parts of the directions. And so I did my best to think of below ground and above as well. And there's more. And I'm not even going to get to all these directions, just a beginning.
Yeah. Well, I'm very excited to experience it in the space and collaborate with you to find a way that people can get oriented in the space and feel all those directions all at once. Maybe, I don't know. It's exciting. Can you talk a little bit about the techniques that you're utilizing for all of those sculptors out there that might be interested in the technical aspect of how you're making your work?
I think the biggest technique that I have to utilize is the fixing technique. Well, when I'm making these things, sometimes they're big. There's 17-inch diameter pieces, and they're drying in an unheated studio, I have to say. So it's tough getting them to dry just right. That's always a big problem with ceramics. And they're kind of heavy, and there's a lot of tension pulling on the body of them. And then I'm adding things, and I'm layering up more pieces of clay on top of it and trying to connect it. And at some point, it doesn't even want to connect anymore. So what happens is when they're drying, sometimes I'll get some cracks, and I have to use a filler, which I make. And for anybody who doesn't know this lovely trick, you can do this at any temperature, but you mix half granulated toilet paper that's been broken down in water, and you squeeze out the excess water and then mix it with the same amount of clay, of the same clay body you're using, and it makes paper clay. And if you add just a touch of vinegar to it, you have magic paper clay that will hold things, that will put things back together. So I can actually do a lot of these crack fixes before it goes into the kiln for the first time. And it's not really a mistake if it's before it goes in the kiln the first time, is what I say. So, right. Yes. Someone was at my house the other night. She was saying that when she looks at sculptures in museums, she sees cracks. And she can't believe that she's seeing ceramics with cracks in them in museums. And I'm like, man, that's just the nature of sculpture and ceramics. It's like, we're not trying to drink out of it. We're not trying to eat cereal out of it. It doesn't have to hold water.
Yeah, it has a different function.
Yeah, it's got to be made in the moment too. It's like, you have to think it all the way through.
Can you speak a little bit about, is it Tondo style? Am I pronouncing that correct?
I can try to. It's I looked it up in a book just like anybody else.
Okay.
When I was in at PNCA, I used to take the little odd jobs, and someone gave me an odd job of painting a replica Tondo. So I had in my hands about the same size as I'm making right now, because it was a replica. The Della Robbia ones are much bigger. So Tondo is the Della Robbia style of round. It's an architectural element for a wall that has a scene inside of it as a very high relief. Mm-hmm. It's usually Virgin and Child, and it's usually got lots of fruits and berries and things around the outside of the circle. So, having that in my hands early on and painting it, which I don't know if I did very good at all. I don't know, but they were bright at some point, but now they're usually, you just see them kind of faded. But they were ceramic too. And I like that idea too, that, I kind of did them the same way. I made a basic mold, and then I built built the stories onto the basic pieces, which was a challenge because when you're stuck with the same beginning all the time, you might have to work around things to get different answers each time you ask the question.
Well,
Did I answer the question?
yeah, no,
Keep forgetting what you're asking me.
No,
I think
this is wonderful. Like, I love hearing your passion for the work and how excited you are for this new series. And, people are listening to us talk about it and they haven't seen the work yet. This interview will be available in the gallery so people can listen to it while they're looking at the work, which might be really stimulating to people. Yeah, they can hear your voice and what you've been thinking about while you've been making this work. So this is perfect.
I'm glad. I wouldn't say anything different, I don't suppose.
Yeah.
I haven't thought of anything that's going to keep me up later at night going, why did I say that? I haven't said that yet.
All right. Give me a call. We'll edit it out. Have some loud music come in and fade out or something like that.
Right.
Well, Vicki, thank you so much for your time today. Compass is on view in the Corrine Woodman Gallery at the Art Center in Corvallis, Oregon, January 2nd through 27th. And local artist Vicki Wilson is the featured artist for that series. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to TAC Makes. This is a new creative project at the Art Center, and I hope you enjoy our learning curve as much as we do. You can find more episodes on YouTube and Spotify and on our website, theartscenter.net. That's arts with an S.